Yeah, no. Hey, you alright, mate? How you doing? No, I'm just chilling at the minute. Yeah, I've got to do some filming in a minute. Yeah, Clone House has sent me some samples, so I'm going to do a video. It's some I don't know. You've probably never heard of it. It's a Aventas Avin Aventus. You've heard of it? Really? Word to your mother. My name's Steve. This channel is FRAG30 Imperious, and thank you for tuning in. As always, I really appreciate it. Today, I'm going to be reviewing some Aventus clones. I've got a few different kind of versions. Now, it's not something that I particularly enjoy. It was particularly easy, actually, because the trouble is with Aventus clones, there's 1,000,001 different versions out there in different clone houses, and they're all kind of slightly different, and they're at different price points, so it's hard to compare like for like when they cost different amounts of money. And also, Aventus batches do vary by all accounts. I'm certainly no expert, but it seems there's a bit of variation batch to batch, so the goalposts are shifting, so it's always a bit of a challenge. So the things to declare before I kind of get into this is, one, I'm not a big Aventus fan. Now, just to elaborate that, or before people comment below saying, oh, I can't believe you don't like Aventus, it's the king. It's not that I don't like it, it's just that I don't get the hype. I can respect it, it's a solid fragrance, it's certainly not bad, it's a good fragrance, but I just don't get the hype. I think that's for two reasons. One is I've only smelt the more recent batches, and by all accounts the older ones are sort of smokier and smell better. And also, the first time I ever smelled Aventus was after I kind of got into YouTube and FRAG30 and saw all the hype. And so when I smelt it in a department store, I thought I was going to jizz in my pants, and I didn't. I left with blue ball. So another thing to declare before we kind of get into this is, as I've indicated already, I'm not an Aventus fan or expert or connoisseur by any means. So I'm approaching this completely as a layperson. And of course, the final thing to announce is that the batch that I'm comparing this to of the original, I know you're going to want to know what batch number it is, because that's your Aventus geeks, so of course you will. And it is 18K01. So I got this sample from fragrancesamples.uk.com, and yeah, that's the batch. And I must admit, wearing the original, so for most of these clones that I'm going to review, I wore the original on one arm, the clone on the other arm, and I just did a side-by-side comparison throughout the day. And I must admit, wearing this, I did start appreciating it a little bit more, and it's just the quality of it and how well blended it is. And I must say that this particular batch is not, I wouldn't say it's a particularly fruity batch. It's not really smoky either. It's probably more smoky than fruity. But what I like about this is just, it's really well blended, and there's just this sort of creaminess about it. And I can only assume that that comes from the vanilla, but there's no real vanilla accord that I kind of get from it. So it might just be that the sheer quality of the ingredients, or just how well blended it is, that gives it this slight creaminess. But yeah, I did kind of pick up on that while smelling the original, and I must admit that did sort of gain a few points for me, I must confess. So first up, we're going to look at Aventus 0022 from Perfume Parlour. Now, this Perfume Parlour, I believe, do two different batches, or two different versions of Aventus. Well, the last time I checked anyway, they do this one, which is the fruity batch, the fruity version, and then they also do a smoky version. So I went for the fruity one when I got this. This is something I've paid for myself. I've used a little bit of it, as you can see. Of course, the thing to note here is this Perfume Parlour is the cheapest clone that I'm going to look at today. I think you can get this 50ml for like 12 or 14 pounds, so it is really good value. So as I've sort of indicated earlier, that's something to consider when you're sort of comparing Aventus clones, that the price point varies a lot. So, if you're happy to pay this, you may well be happy with the performance and smell of this relative to its cost, where others might not be. So just bear that in mind. So the Perfume Parlour version then, when you apply it, the opening is very fruity. That does sort of die down a little bit after about 10 minutes. It is, not surprisingly, a lot more synthetic than the original. And after kind of wearing it, it becomes, that fruitiness resides. It does remain there. It does die down a little bit, but it does always remain fruitier than the original. But what I've also noticed with the Perfume Parlour version is it's slightly greener, and I can only assume that it's the sort of patchouli that's a little bit more amped in the Perfume Parlour version. And actually it's that sort of patchouli green kind of accord that I'm not a biggest fan of either, I must admit. But you know, this does smell good. It's perfectly for the money. This is, you know, really good for like the 12 or 14 pounds. Yes, it is a lot more synthetic than the original, obviously, because it's like, you know, a fraction of the cost. And it's definitely fruitier as well, this batch, because this is the fruity version. I've not tried the Perfume Parlour smoky version. So if you like your Aventus kind of fruitier, and you are on a budget, this does kind of make sense really for 12 or 14 pounds or whatever it is. And it performs really well. So I've worn this out, I wore this to kind of theme park, and it smells all day. I mean, you get 2 or 3 hours projection and it seems to last all day. So yeah, value for money is spot on, but yeah, it's obviously lacking the kind of quality of the original, just obviously. And the original, as I mentioned earlier, that original's got that, to me, this batch that I've got is slight, it's got this really slight kind of, it's so smooth, it's almost got this slight creaminess to it. And this doesn't have that, the Perfume Parlour version doesn't have that, unfortunately. But yeah, value for money, this is sound. Next up, we've got a version of Aventus from a relatively new clone house called Rosa Salas, because they contacted me and wanted me to do a video for their channel, and I sort of politely declined and said, if you want to send me some samples, I'll happily kind of do a review and put it on my channel, and it would be an honest review of how it compares to the original. So you've got to kind of be willing to take the rough for the smooth, and they were like, yeah, that's cool. So that's what we've done. So they sent me some samples, and not surprisingly, there was an Aventus in there, because a clone house without Aventus is like a library without books. So Rosa Salas then, their Aventus. The opening is very sharp, very sharp. It's, I would say, tart actually is a word I would use. It's very fruity, it's almost lemony in the opening, it's really quite tart. After, particularly compared to the original is a lot smoother. With the original Aventus, you can spray that on and smell straight away. You don't get any alcohol, it's so smooth, so well blended. But yeah, there's a real sharp tartness to the Rosa Salas in the opening. After about sort of 10 minutes, that does die down a little bit. But for about 45 minutes, it does stay relatively kind of synthetic, and then it sort of balances out a little bit more. And then it becomes quite a sort of a more balanced scent. It always remains fruitier than the original, I would say, or particularly this batch of Aventus that I'm testing it against. It always remained fruitier throughout the whole life of the scent. But that might not be a bad thing. You might like a nice fruity Aventus where other people might like a smoky one. So yeah, it does, after about 45 to an hour, it certainly loses that sharpness, and it becomes a more balanced kind of profile. And I would actually say, if I was just looking at it individually, not comparing it to this original batch, it's not a bad mix, it's not a bad balance between smoky and fruity. I would say it's not too smoky, it's not too fruity, but it is definitely fruitier than the original, if that makes sense. So it depends kind of what you want. If you want an exact like for like to this particular 18K01 batch that I've got, then yeah, it's going to be fruitier. Where if you like your Aventus to be fruity, but you want it to be balanced with some smokiness, then yeah, this will kind of do it for you. Performance was really good. It certainly projected for sort of 2 or 3 hours. My wife could smell it when I got home. She's not a big Aventus fan like me either. She doesn't. It's not a fragrance that she particularly enjoys. But she did say at the end of the day, I got home at about 5:30 after spraying it at about 9 o'clock in the morning. And she did say that she could certainly still smell it. She said it's quite strong. But though I did go heavy because I was testing, so I had the original here, the Rosa Salas here, and I think I put some around my neck as well. But she did say that it was a very manly scent, and she said it smells like something a rugby player would wear, were her words. So if you're interested in smelling like a nice manly rugby player, check out the Rosa Salas one. It is a lot pricier than other clones. So it's you can get 50ml for about £30, but there's different size options. I think the 10ml version costs about £10, so it's certainly not the cheapest. So again, you might want to factor that in when it comes to kind of value for money. I would say that it's on the dry down, as I say, it's not a bad balance between smoky and fruity, but it is fruitier than the batch of Creed Aventus that I've been smelling it against. Next up, I'm going to look at Armaf's Club de Nuit Intense Man. I don't really need to say much about this because most of you know what it is. I don't know how much this goes for nowadays. Is it about £20, £25, that sort of touch? In the UK anyway. And yeah, this is the first time, so I've got a sample of this. I don't own it, so again, I've got a sample from this from fragrancesamplesuk.com, and this was the last one I tried. So again, it's a similar sort of price to the kind of previous one that we've looked at. And yeah, I was impressed. I've got to say, it's again quite a sort of sharp opening. I wouldn't say it was as sharp or as tart as the previous one, but it is certainly fruitier in the opening. But on the dry down, once it sort of goes after about 20 minutes, I would say, it started smelling a lot similar to the original Creed Aventus. I would say it's probably the closest one of the three that I've tried. It's, again, doesn't quite have that quality, or you know, as expected, because again, it is a fraction of the price. So the quality is probably not quite there, and it's not quite as smooth, and yet again, it still doesn't have that slight creaminess that I seem to pick up from this. But it is good, and it is a really good version, I've got to say. So again, for value for money, for the £20, £25, whatever this costs nowadays, it's probably the best clone that I've tried today. Tried for this video anyway. The only thing that I would say on this is apparently the Armaf Club de Nuit Intense Man, it has been reformulated, I believe. I've seen some videos more recently of people saying that it's not what it used to be and it doesn't perform, and they must have reformulated it, etc. So I don't know about that. If you have tried it, let me know, comment below. So that could be a sort of risky buy now if it's reformulated and it's not performing. This sample that I've got, I don't know what the batch was or how old it is. It seemed to perform quite well. As I say, it smelt probably the closest to the original of all the clones that I've tried, but it just still didn't quite have that quality and that smoothness, but that's to be expected. But for value for money, this is probably the best, and it did perform well. But if the newer batches don't perform well, then you're going to lose that value for money, I would say. So yeah, that's the Armaf version. That's Club de Nuit Intense Man. So that's it. That's my little summary of Aventus clones. And has wearing Aventus over sort of 3 or 4 days, has it changed my mind on Aventus? No, not really, if I'm honest. Wearing the original, as I sort of touched upon in the opening of the video, it has kind of gained a few more points with me. I can sort of appreciate it a little bit more. It is very good quality, very well blended. It's very smooth, and it is, I totally get that it's a very solid, versatile, manly fragrance, but it still doesn't excite me, I'm afraid. It just doesn't kind of do it for me. So with that in mind, I want to do a giveaway. I'm going to give away my 50ml bottle, which I've used a bit of Perfume Parlour's Aventus 022. So I've not done a giveaway for quite some time now, and it's probably about time I did one. I've already got one teed up for the 1,000 subscribers, so do please subscribe if you haven't done so already. But yes, I just don't see that I'm going to wear this Aventus from Perfume Parlour. Not to say that it's bad, I just don't particularly get excited by it. So if you want to win this version of Aventus from Perfume Parlour, this is going to be to the UK viewers only, I'm afraid, just purely because it's a nightmare to ship perfume stuff outside of the UK. Please comment below, tell me that you want it, tell me what your favourite Perfume Parlour is. That might be a nice one, because then I can pick up some suggestions. Or just tell me which ones you'd like to try if you haven't done so, and I will do a random comment picker in a couple of weeks. So yeah, please get involved. Please like, comment, subscribe, get involved in the giveaway, and yeah, I will see you next time. Thank you for watching. Much love.